I wanted to talk to you about using 3-column notes in our math class. Specifically, today we're going to talk about using vertical and horizontal transformations and how to graph them. We're going to look at homework 4.1, problem number 1 in Pearson's My Math Lab as an example for this. So here's the problem, and this is what it looks like in Pearson's. We've got the function y equals x to the third and the transformation of that function y equals x to the third minus 10. The question asks us to sketch the graphs, both graphs, and describe the transformation. So we need to understand what are transformations. And transformations can be moving a graph up or down, left, right, flipping, shrinking, stretching. We're going to look at desmos.com now. Desmos.com is a free online graphing calculator. It's very powerful and very helpful. So I'm going to show the example of y equals x to the fourth. The red line is that graph. We're going to apply some transformations. So notice how I'm going to start with y equals x to the fourth. And if I add a value onto it, so if I add, say, a 1, it moves the whole graph up by 1 unit. Similarly, I could subtract 2 and notice how it shifts the entire graph down by 2 units. So anytime you add or subtract something from a graph, you get a vertical transformation. Next, I want to talk to you about horizontal transformations. And that happens when you put the x in parentheses, and in those parentheses you add or subtract something. If I were to subtract -2, notice how it's a right shift of 2, opposite of that negative sign. Likewise, if I were to put an x plus 3 in the parentheses, it would shift it to the left. So counterintuitive of what you think. So in those parentheses are the side-to-side shifts. If I put something in front of the function like a 2, it's going to shrink it a little bit. If I were to put a 10, it shrinks it even more, 100, even more, 1,000. Similarly, if I put a fraction, it's going to make it a little wider. And so notice how I can keep changing my fractions to make it wider and wider. You can also put decimals in, and decimals will similarly make it a little wider than the original function. Now, something else that we need to think about is reflections. So reflections build off of the shrink and stretch, but you're going to use that negative, and the negative sign will flip it. And so you've got your original function in red and the new one in purple, and it flips it. So in this video, we talked about how to use desmos to help you with this. And now we're going to show you how to use that in Pearson's. So here's Pearson's, and in this problem specifically, we need to graph it. So I'm going to open up desmos in one window and Pearson's in the other, and I'm going to put in the 2 graphs that we need to graph just so that I know what they look like. So there's our x plus x to the third, and there's our x to the third minus 10. So as we talked about before, that minus 10 is moving that whole graph down. When I click on it, it pops up a window to make the graph. So we notice there's an S shape. So we're going to click the S curve and click on the graph anywhere. And notice they match. And so we'll click the X on the pop-up box, and that's our first graph. We'll click on the S again, click anywhere on the graph, and now we have that minus 10, which is a vertical shift. So in the vertical shift box, we need to type in a minus 10. You click the X and save it and check your answer. And now we need to choose the correct transformation. So recall that that minus 10 was a vertical shift and it moved it down. So that is the big idea. Let me know if you have any questions. Again, hopefully by the end of this, you have a better idea about transformations, what they look like in equations and graphs, and how to graph them in Pearson's My Math Labs. Thank you.